when you start doing it and it starts opening doors, then you go, okay, it's working. Was there a realisation that it was working when you done the third one?
Yeah, there was. I think even that, it was a lot easier to bring sponsors on board, and it was a lot easier to be taken more serious because I've got 2 world records under my belt. And despite people saying how impossible the YANGTZE was, and even the locals sort of going against it, and even the government saying it's simply not doable, and they would point out reasons as to why. I think now I had Mongolia and Madagascar, and it was a case of like, look, this is what these people said about Mongolia and Madagascar. I went on, I achieved that. It's down in the history books, it's world first. You can believe that I'm going to do this because I'm going to prepare for it, I'm going to train for it. I've got the track habits, I've built up the experience. And so it was easier to convince sponsors, but it was still, I think up to this point, definitely it's in the thousands of rejections, from TV, from sponsors, from magazines, from all of that, for sure. I think that also feeds the hunger, right? It fuels the fight. Yeah. And I just remember just going at it fully. And Nat Geo didn't actually come on board till once I had finished the expedition, and Guinness Book of Records didn't come on board until afterwards. They were recording it, they were documenting it. I had to take like a beacon system, and that would send off like a ping to the satellite every 5 minutes. So it was 5 minutes, 24/7 for 352 days. That's how long it took me to hike the YANGTZE. It was a year. And so it took them about 2.5-3 months to go through it and make sure it was legitimate, make sure I didn't jump on the back end of a bicycle, make sure I didn't use the flow of the stream, because that would be classed as cheating, disqualified. And if I did, I'd have to walk back, which I did sometimes, to then, walk back upstream to then walk to balance the distance out. And so a lot didn't come on board until after the YANGTZE. And I remember it even being a struggle to get the expedition the green light. Everything was in place. Like, I knew sort of the logistics, the production team in Beijing, all of that, but they weren't working. And I was like, fuck, how do I get them to work? And they kind of said, yeah, maybe plan it for next year. That'll be safer, that'll be easier. So I actually took a big risk, and I think you all need to do this in business, and I'm sure you would have done something similar many times. But I took a press release to the press. I organised a big event in Canary Wharf, invited all sort of press members, and I launched the expedition. But at that point, I didn't have the finances, I didn't have the visa, I didn't have the permits to get to the source of the YANGTZE, but I attached the different brands and the different names and the different logistics and the production team to that press release that now went viral, was now with the BBC World News, BBC, Channel 4, Channel 5 News, all of that. And that, it was a big risk. My family and friends advised me against it. They were like, look, don't do this. And I was like, look, it's going to work. And their brand, their name was now attached to it. So they're like, fuck, okay, right, well. And then they started to pick up then, and we managed to get the green light. But, it was difficult. It was difficult. I was given an honorary doctorate, where I was made doctor for 1 year, specifically so that I could get an ambassadorship role for the Three Sources National Park, in which I would have then been ambassador for the Green Development Foundation, which I needed to be to access the next national park, in which I had to be all of those in order for the government to take me serious and the government provide sort of protection from the authorities. And eventually the list went on, but I had to carry, I think it was 16 signed and stamped documents, legal documents, to say why I've got the satellite systems and the beacons with me, and the satellite phone, why I'm here on the border of Tibet, why I'm here in this national park. It was very sensitive when it came to China.